Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you for tuning into our show tonight, and we welcome you to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. Our country, ladies and gentlemen, the Bahamas, is poised to be super wealthy in a matter of months. I don't want to say years, because our government is going to be aware that we are in charge of a good portion of carbon credit in the world. The world is threatened. We have global warming going on, and if the necessary actions to alleviate the carbon in the atmosphere is not engaged, a vast area of the world as we know it will become submerged forever. Particularly low-lying areas such as our lovely Bahama land. So you see, dear listener, it's not a matter of if we will protect against this carbon blockage, but how soon we must accomplish net zero carbon emissions. I go no further without saying to me and you and all of our countrymen, happy 50th Independence Anniversary. Independence, big deal, in my opinion anyway. I was 11 years old, between 10 and 11 in 1973, when we were moving into, in July I was 11. And we all went to Fort Charlotte. I walked to Fort Charlotte. I was living on Apple Street, Roll Avenue, just there off Wolf Road by McKinney Bar, around by FYP, what used to be Bahamian Lumber and all the rest of that stuff. Right in that area, opposite on the other side, we got Roll Avenue. And I walked from Roll Avenue to Clifford Park. And I was only a little boy, but I went with my neighbor. Her name was Dale Ferguson. And her sister Laura just passed. We just buried Laura about 2 weeks ago. God bless her soul. May she continue to rest in peace. But Dale was a couple years older than me, only about 3 or 4 years older than me. And we walked from Apple Street along Peach Street, and we just keep cutting cross until we got to East Street, and then Farm Road, we call it Market Street today, and then Blue Hill Road, and you know, we took the back road, going up by the other radio station, my boy Steve McKinney, that road, Rusty, whatever drive that is, and went straight to Clifford Park. And well, of course, you find your spot and you watch all the activities, and it went all the way into midnight until the time come for that flag to switch over. And we there's a story behind that flag switching over too. I'm sure a lot of us would have heard that the police had to go on his motorbike and do a speedy run, because they forgot the flag. It was still at Government House, and he had to do a speedy run on his motorbike. I think he had about 5 or 6 minutes to go and come back in order for that flag to be hoisted in place of the Union Jack at that occasion. None of us know what was going on, but boy, we come close to not having our flag to raise, according to the reports from one of the policemen that were involved in the raising. He took a bike and he was able to, in record time, dash to the Government House and back amidst all that crowd, just so that our flag, the only one we had, at least that one was designated to go up that night, could have been hoisted. And you watch all of it going on, and it was a spectacular. I mean, you know, you're talking about 1973. We haven't seen so much fireworks and all the rest of that, because the country was just getting out of the olden days, right? Just getting out of our parents' days. You know, most of them grew up on the family islands and whatnot, coming into Nassau, start to build big hotels over Paradise Island, out Cable Beach, and the city started to come in, and we started to have all kind of nightclubs and this and that, and that is around the time, remember that, 1967 election. I was alive, but I don't know nothing but the election back then. I was about 5. But in that election, I think that would have been the election when they had majority rule sometime back then, when you didn't have to own a land to vote. And if you own 10 pieces of land, you didn't have 10 pieces of votes. And eventually women were able to go and vote. I remember in 1972, the neighbors all going, marching up to go cast their ballot, because, you know, by 72 I was done 10. So they were going to vote, and I heard them, you can't market X. I don't know what they was talking about, but, you know, in hindsight, you would say, boy, I see why they were so excited. All the women were so excited and making all that noise when they're walking through the corner. And you see them walking through, you see nobody had no car back then. Well, most families had like one car, right? Some families, they had none. Especially in that neighborhood anyway. Now, I know about the rich people. I talk about what I know. And so, of course, they would have gone and voted and all that. But, I say all that to say that from independence to today. And I listened to my good friend Shavago's show today. And he was making a comparison, basically, between what took place in 1973, where this country was, as far as whether we've made significant strides, whether we moved backwards, whatever. And I was in full agreement with him as he said, look, back then we had, most of us was living in clapboard houses, outdoor toilets. Most of us. I say everybody, because we had some people who don't know nothing about outside toilet. But the regular people like me, we was glad to have an outside toilet. Because my parents, my mom told me that when she was growing up, they had no outside toilet. Yeah? And I saying that to say that was disgraceful or whatever, but that's just the way it was, and that's the way it is in some countries today. But anyway, fast forward. What we have today, our average home in this country for a Bahamian family, average is basically 3 bed, 2 bath, eh? I mean, most houses, a lot of them may have 2 bed, 1 bath. But even if you have 2 bed, 1 bath, that bath is inside. You don't have to come out of your house in the rain to rush to the toilet in order to relieve yourself. So we've come far because we got more stone houses. We even got, if you want to build a house now, we got code to build it by. Back then, you just throw up something and you live in it, right? So I think we've come a long way too, because most people, once they by the age of 25, if they're working, and most of us work, you own your own car. You could pull up, check some houses now. You see 4 and 5 cars in one yard. Back then, you see a car in front of a yard every now and then. A lot of houses, they didn't even have a car. So we walked to Clifford Park. Dale, I was with Dale, of course. She was the big sister sort of thing. And we walked back. You know what time it was when Dale and I walked back? This is like 1 o'clock in the morning. This is after everything finished. We walked back again through Quaco Street and come through Peach Street and we had to walk. So back then, the roads were not as dangerous. Back then, almost everybody used to walk the streets. And of course, you go in some areas like Camp Road and I think you got to be careful in Fox Hill back then, but Fox Hill had a small community, they knew each other. But certain areas you walk in, fellas may come up to you and say, look, give me a quarter. You know what to do, right? You give him a quarter, you could beat him running. But we have come a long way. The country has been far more developed today than we was then. And if you give me a choice, say to me, Captain Glenn Bain, in 1973, you was around. You're around now. Which of those 2 eras would you prefer to born in? It's a clear-cut answer. I rather born in this era. Because, it's a different era of technology. But again, the opportunities are better. You live easier and better. Most of our homes have air conditioning. I would have picked this era. So if you're really asking me if this country have improved over the years, my answer is a clear-cut yes, by far. By far. And it didn't go without concerns. But it did. And If somebody disagree with that, then that's fine. Everybody got their own opinion, but I know what I live, and I know what it was, and I know what it is. And I can tell you, although we have pros and cons surrounding this situation, I would have picked now. So tonight, my dear listeners, we have a litany of examples of what entities are doing to reduce their carbon footprints on the road to attaining net zero carbon emissions by the year 2050. And why do they have to attain net zero carbon emissions by the year 2050? Because the United Nations already mandated that by 2050, there should be no carbon being emitted into the environment or into the air or the atmosphere as we know it. Because we are now in trouble. You see what happened is carbon, and a lot of people, carbon comes from fire. Carbon comes from combustion in any machinery, any engine, generator, whatever kind of machinery that releases carbon dioxide or carbon, because it uses oxygen for the explosion. You need oxygen in there to have that combustion, because fire is made from air, heat, and some kind of fuel, right? So you need that fuel and heat, and you need that air, which is oxygen, to cause that explosion, to cause those pistons to go up and down in the cylinder, to keep those crankshaft rolling, and etc., etc., etc. I had a real discussion with my boy by cow. That's Kimo Sanders. He's by cow, and I thought I knew a little bit. And he was telling me, no, it's the opposite way around. The piston, the top of the part of the piston. Yeah, but I ain't trying to be a mechanic. I only know they have a chamber, the cylinder. The piston goes up and down the cylinder, and when it goes one way, it compresses the air, and the compression actually expands and push it back up, and then the turning of the crankshaft send it back down again, and that action completes. So the crankshaft has always been energized to turn, and they have how much cylinders you have depending on how much different pistons you get turning that crankshaft, and that's why you get the 8-cylinder cars roll much faster or easier than the 6-cylinder car, 4 cylinders, etc., right? They need bigger engines for big equipment because the equipment heavier, so they need more to push them. Well, we ain't talking too much about engineering, but by 2050, the world shouldn't have no more carbon going into the air from nothing. And the easy two areas to make this happen is with the airplanes and also with all the ships. We're not saying that the airplanes will no longer, from their engines, be emitting carbon in the air. Yeah, they might, but now the type engines they have, you will see they're going to make a lot of changes. Because right now, we'll talk a lot about what's going on with even the ships, right? Ships are now getting engines that run on natural gas, propane gas, ethanol, all kind of, because these things emit less carbon than the regular fuel oil that they use now, the bunker C, or the diesel, or the gasoline, or whatever. Well, my ship could use gasoline because it's too expensive. Diesel as well. You got those big ships. They can't use. The only smaller ones use diesel, right? Because they fast turning and all that. But those big slow turning engine on most huge cargo ships, they use that fuel oil thing, which is very cheap. But again, they need something that will emit less carbon than even that, right? So the world is now moving toward cleaner fuel burning, and they are making provisions to offset the carbon that they actually send out of the exhaust. And you know what they're doing now? Some of them already start to do it. Well, they had a lot of experiments going on, right? They're going to capture the exhaust, the carbon from the exhaust before it's discharged from the ship. So they'll put a filter there where all the carbon would be captured, and they would channel that through a pipeline to what you call a void space on the ship, or a tank that they refitted to hold this carbon. And then they'll be able to count to say, okay, we go on from here to there. Our carbon emission used to be so much tons per minute. Let's say they used to emit 3 tons of carbon every minute. Now I'm throwing these figures out wildly, right? But I know it's tons, in tons. And they emit 3 tons every hour. And the 3 tons, because if they had a 5-hour voyage, they should have 15 tons, right? So they may have 13 or 12 tons, and they could say, look, we captured most of the carbon from going into air, and we got the proof right here in this tank. We keep our records, and later on, some of these companies that actually take carbon in the raw form, they will take it from that tank, and they would have, say, like a truck with a big tank, like the fuel trucks we have, right? The what you call them? Not container trucks, the whatever we call the big fuel truck that go from gas station and stuff out Clifton Pier. The tanker trucks. The tanker trucks would take that carbon and they would take it to an institution that converts carbon. Well, they don't convert it from carbon to nothing else. They break it down from the form it's in, which in that case would be the vaporized carbon, and they will heat it up or cool it down or whatever they need to do. I know all the details. I've been reading about some of it, but they would make that carbon into either liquid, which is like water. Through the heating process, it turns to liquid, and they can store it in bottles or turn it into solid. And the solid could be just chunks of carbon, right? And what they would do with the carbon that they now converted and have in capture, which can't now be released into the atmosphere because it ain't vapor no more, they would dig a hole in the ground hundreds of miles down and create a space where they could store that. Now remember, the ground kind of like carbon, because all the trees take in carbon, the roots take in carbon, and you know that the trees store most of the carbons in the roots. That's why you get, and I may be going a little off course, but see, I ain't too technical with this stuff, but you got simple stuff. The trees, when they inhale carbon through the leaves and whatnot, and eventually that goes down into the root. That's why when people were making coal, we talk about the migrants coming here and they cutting down the trees to sell coal. The tree itself ain't get no coal in it. You know where the coal was? The coal is in the roots of those trees that they were cutting down. Because coal really is a lot of carbon. Remember, most things with burn is carbon. The coal is carbon. And that's why they got those coal mines all over the US and all over the world, where they basically get the coal, because the coal is stored underground. So they go in those mines and get the coal, but they'll be in solid form. They could convert that to liquid, they could convert that to whatever, and they use it for energy. They use it so that the combustion engines could burn it and all the rest of that. You remember, I don't know if you saw the Titanic, where the fellas in the engine room was actually keep throwing coal so that the engine could have something to continue the I almost call it explosion, the combustion, right? So we need to keep feeding it with coal, and that's the carbon being broken down and released. Again, see my time, that's almost half hour. Well, why does time must go so fast, Mr. Producer? Why does time could roll? Okay, so we are now realizing that the carbon being produced all over the place by ships, by aircraft, and 28% by cars. Trucks, cars, all the rest of them. 28% of the world carbon is being, so every day, and that's why they said, and you may have heard this over and over again, by 2030, they want to try and have primarily electric cars. And certainly by 2050, you wouldn't have any more car with combustion engines. Everything will be electric. I know they have the hybrid thing, which is like a fix between the combustible engines and the batteries, right? The electric. So what it does, and I learned this when I was in Berlin, because I took a cab once or twice, and the cab that I took in Berlin were those hybrid cars, right? This was a taxi. They have hybrid taxis. Most of the taxis are hybrid. And the guy was displaying, he's explaining to me, saying, because I never really been in a hybrid prior to that. But what happens is the electric section, or the battery, once that car is going up to like 25 to 30 miles per hour, the combustion engine don't kick in, because it takes more energy to move that car. Now once it starts moving and get to 20, 25, it burns less from the combustion engine. That's why they have a little small engine, because they don't need to really bring it up to speed. They got the electrical end for that. And that's what the hybrid stuff do. And in addition to that, now they're saying you could have a hybrid now, but in 2050 you can't even have a hybrid. You can have a fully electric vehicle. Now the electric vehicles don't emit any carbon, because all electric, ain't nothing being combustion, combustion chamber for carbon to be released, right? But think about it. That electric vehicle, I have to plug into something at night to charge that big battery, eh? So what you think that plugging into? That plugging into electricity. So we still gotta have electricity. Of course, at that point, when all the ships can account for all the carbon by trapping it and having it, companies ashore convert it to solid or liquid to put it in the ground. And on top of that, the airplanes are doing a similar thing. And by that time, they would have already cut down on a lot of the engines, the combustible engines, or even the fuel that the engine uses, to extremely light fuel, which has less carbon and methanol and that type of thing. And I am no chemist, I am no scientist, but I've been reading about this stuff, right? And if somebody who is a chemist or scientist could expand on that or tell me where I'm going wrong, let me know. I tell you, there's no pro on this. But those engines, even because you need engines still, because you still gotta have electrical companies, you still gotta have some electrical in your house, right? You got some things like air conditioning that probably wouldn't be able to work on just, although they're now starting, and as time go on, right? As time go on, we know that technology is going to move deep into solar, deep into wind farms, right? Those big windmills, because they got a lot of them now. So things are going to be happening to offset the use of combustible engines, because that's basically where all the carbon getting there, and that's why we're in trouble, because the carbons coming from those combustible engines over the past, say, 50 years, because prior to that, we had too much engines, the engine era came around, what, in the 1920s or so, or even later than that. Yeah, but we never saw no cars and stuff like that back in those early 1900s. So in the 1800s, I don't even know if they had hardly any carbon being emitted into there. Well, they had coal, I'm sure, because they had to generate heat, especially in those cold countries. So they can use something to generate heat. But the earth was able to balance then. But it can't balance now because there's so much carbon. Now what happened is, because you have so much carbon there, what carbon does, the sun comes through and it heats up the earth every day. Now when the earth gets heat up, what happens? Heat starts to rise from the earth. And that heat always rises and keep rising, and it's trying to get into the abyss, and that outside of the environment of the earth, right? And it used to get there. But now, because we have so much carbon in the air, carbon actually sucks up that heat while it's trying to go up and expands and just hold it. And then the carbon is now blocking up the area where the heat have to go last before it get into the abyss. The carbon have circled that whole area around it. So now the carbon is being trapped from getting out. The heat is being trapped from getting out. So that's why this is so critical, people. They're saying nothing but because the Bahamas have these big carbon sinks, we want to make money off them. No, they have to pay us money for those carbon sinks, because those carbon sinks are naturally taking carbon out of the air by huge numbers. And when I say huge numbers, we're talking about an area, let's say you have on the west coast of Andes with all those seagrasses and mangroves, right? Because I don't know how much what you call salt marshes the Bahamas get, and I'm really too concerned with that, because I know we got plenty seagrass, and I know we got even more mangroves. But the seagrass and mangroves, they take carbon out of the air 35 to 40 times faster than a big tree in the forest. So if you get 1 acre on the west coast of Andes, north coast of Grand Bahama, up in Aucklands, all the islands got mangroves, and seagrass. But you can take 1 acre of that, and that is equal to, you go in the deep forests in Brazil, and you get these acres and acres of what they call, not wetlands, they call them whatever they call them, but these big trees, rainforests, right? The rainforest, the trees in the rainforest, 1 acre of rainforest trees will take in, 1 acre of mangroves in our waters will take in the same amount of carbon as 35 acres of those big, large forest trees. So those big trees in the forest, they only take in 1/40th of the carbon at any one point than our seagrass, because the sea is a very serious thing, you know. People talking about they take in sea moss and they take sea moss because what sea moss giving them the quantity of what that the thing name they say body made. The body is made up of acid and what the next thing name would see. Anyway, they say that it's very high to offset the acid in your body, and if your body is not acidic, then you shouldn't even be able to catch the flu and that type of thing. But we know about all that. But I ain't getting into all that. We talking about the carbon crisis now. But I'm saying to you that because the sea is so powerful, and in the Bahamas we are known for shallow waters. These seagrass and mangroves don't go in the ocean. They cannot go in the ocean because they're not going to get the sun. So we are so fortunately blessed in this country to have the mangroves and the seagrass, because we got all the shallow water, all the flats, where all the bonefish, where these fish is be having habitats to keep the big fish them out there living and all the rest of that. So it's like nurseries and all the rest of that. And you know, we gotta really protect that now, because just by nature, just by them breathing, the amount of carbon they use to breathe is 35 times more than the carbon a regular tree uses. So, like Dr. Miles Monroe used to say, the Bahamas is the place where God lives. Because not many countries can say that on a per capita basis, they have this large volume of seagrass and mangroves. So how blessed we are. So if our country represents some over 60% of the mangroves and seagrass in the entire Caribbean, and the Caribbean represents over 25% in the entire world, that means we are taking at least about what, 20% of the carbon out the earth, out of the atmosphere of the earth, and now we got to be compensated for that, because we are cleaning, we're helping in a big way for the global warming from all that carbon in the air now that is causing all this extra heat. Because like I say, all this extra heat is going to cause all that ice near the poles because the heat is going to spread around. It's sharp. It can't get out. It's going to cause that ice at the poles to melt even faster. And while that melt and that get into the ocean, because it can't go nowhere else, get right back in the ocean. The ocean is going to rise. And the ocean is going to rise to the extent where the Bahamas becomes underwater. Because, we one of the lowest places in the world. We ain't got no hills. We ain't got much of that going on. We got flat lands. So, what I reckon Dorian did to Freeport and more so Freeport than Abaco, because instead of Freeport for the day and a half, eh? And you see the level of water rise, the people sealing and all that. But that would be natural to us if this carbon emissions or the amount of carbon in there don't help get out, and they keep trapping the heat and the ice in the poles melts until 2050. If we keep on a trend, we go until 2050, we will reach that 1.5 degrees centigrade. In other words, the earth will heat up on a daily basis to at least 1.5 to 2 degrees centigrade more, right? And that will cause the melting of the ice at the poles. So we can't go beyond 1.5 degrees centigrade. So the United Nations and all of its ambits now have to do something to cause the earth to be saved from the carbon release. And we're well on the way. Anyway, people, tonight we have a litany of examples of what entities are doing to reduce their carbon footprints on the road to attaining net zero carbon emissions by the year 2050. In this vein, tonight we have quite a few good topics for you. Our government is examining the merits of this oil exploration company wanting to now get involved in our carbon credits. Is there any merit to that? Challenger Energy Group is the name of the company, people. They used to name Bahamas Petroleum Company. It's the same company. You remember when they came down and they were selling shares and my boy Graham Bedford and them were saying, boy, you better get some shares now before it goes so high and all the rest of that. And that back then, that was viable. That was oil. If we found oil in this country, we figured we could be blinging, we could be big time, and we could be like those Arab countries. But now we got something more costly than oil that could bring a lot more money. Man, the fellas them says it's $156 billion a year. Our carbon sink values to the world. Even if you only get half of that. We got more money than our countries used to have for oil. Boy, are we a blessed people or what? Boy, I can keep my passport dust, so I don't even want to catch dust. So, Challenger Energy Group, the answer is no. I mean, the government could look into it, and I think the government should look into it because y'all came to us in good faith. But we now have carbon credits that we know is worth billions to the world every year. So the answer is no. No. Did I say no? And then we also want you to cut the oil exploration. Now I know your contract expired. You're looking for another 3 years of exploring for. We don't want you to explore for oil no more in our country. And that's my view. I know what the government's saying to you, but me, Captain Glenn Bain, and plenty like me who I talk to, we don't want you drilling in our waters for no oil. Because if you drill and you come across oil and you don't cap it in time, because something going wrong, maybe anything could happen, right? And that oil comes out of the earth and start to get around and smother our seagrass and smother our mangrove. How we can get our carbon credit? No, you could be destroying the world. You could be a bigger problem. We're trying to get rid of oil and gas right now. And by 2050, we won't hardly have no more of that. So we don't even need you to find them, because that's something people who have oil and gas now need to look at other revenue sources, because in 2050, they ain't going to be hardly making no more money. So what we want you running digging for? No man, when you first come, we start people that we was hoping to find oil, but too late, my brother. We now know that our carbon credits is more valuable than oil. We don't want no oil. We don't want you to find none. We don't want you to tamper with nothing on you when it comes to things that could affect our carbon credits. So, and by the way, Mr. Challenger Energy Group, we also want you to stay away from our carbon credit situation. So you come to dig for oil, now you want to get into carbon credits? How do you link the two of them? Boy, look here, ain't nothing happening. I don't know what the government line the government. I only can speak for what Glenn Bain think. And they may say what I think ain't good. I don't think you should be touching our carbon credits. Let's get the real scientists in here. We just had a university come in, what that was, University of Michigan or one of them, came in here and they were able to establish that our carbon credits, based on what they're seeing, with that short time they've been here, is worth at least $156 billion a year. Now we need to get some real big time groups who've been dealing with this carbon situation for a while to come in here and do some research, do some studies, so that we will know where we stand. Because it may be $300 billion a year. It may be $500 billion a year, who knows? And then I talk in these billions and trillions. See, I just do the maths. $1 billion is 1,000 million. Now we know a million is 1,000, right? 1,000, once you get, if you get a grand, that's 100. What a grand is $1,000. Yeah, I get called one of my drug dealer friends and ask him to go. A grand is $1,000, right? And 1,000 of those grands gives you $1 million. So just remember, a million is 1,000,000. And well, first of all, $1,000 is 1,000 hundreds, right? And then that's a grand. And then a million is 1,000 grands or 1,000,000. And then a billion with a B is $1,000 million. Why do you think it's so difficult to be a billionaire? Some people got 500 million, 800 million, but they're not a billionaire. $1 billion is 1,000 million. So if we could get 100 of them every year, because our country debt right now is like between 12 and 14 billion, right? So we could pay our debt off in a couple of months. And then the gravy that's coming after that, what we could do with it? We got to try to take our government to give us some, and how much they need to give us, because you can't just have all the money piling up in the bank and they ain't doing nothing with it. Yeah, we can do some things in our country with that money and all the rest of that. But now the trillion, I wish a trillion again. What is the trillion? If $1 billion is 1,000 million, a trillion is 1,000 billion. So $500 billion got to be 500 billion. And if we could get that here, well, we ain't want that. 100 billion is enough. I mean, 50 billion is enough for us, eh? Maybe even 30. But we know for sure we're on track to get somewhere around 100 billion a year for our carbon credit. People got to pay. They got to pay into the World Bank, and they got to pay into the IMO, and they got to pay into all kind of entities to offset their carbon footprint or carbon that they put in there. If they can't account for the carbon not going in there, right? They got to find a way to pay for that. And of course, we naturally taking carbon out there big time. Forest, the rainforest, them can't compete with us. So we need to have that money. And I telling you, if you have any foresight into how things are now with this world, they have to move on this. This is something what they got to decide. This is something that is decided already. They know they got to be net zero carbon by 2050. And you only talk about, that's what, 26 years from now? I ain't too far. I ain't been doing to get my money. Boy, look here. That's how we roll it. So, we don't want Mr. Challenger Energy Group doing nothing no more. If we can pay you back, let us pay you back. But we don't want you touching our stuff no more, man. We done passed that stage. The IMF outlines climate financing obstacles in the region. The IMF, the International Monetary Federation, these people who the big money people who countries go to for loans and stuff, eh? They're big dogs. International Monetary Fund, right? At the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean petitioned for fairer access to climate financing. So I don't know why we need to finance climate, but maybe, and I hope, our government is petitioning to have studies done. Maybe we're going to need some money to pay for these studies because we know the money got to come. Money coming. The IMF, or the International Monetary Fund, in a new analysis, said several factors, including high levels of government debt, data gaps, and a lack of effective carbon pricing have contributed to lower climate financing in the region. And we got to break that down. So what are they throwing at us now? They say your debt kind of high. You got some gaps in the data pertaining to how much carbon credits you're supposed to get. And you don't have really, we don't know what the carbon pricing is at this. Yeah, but we know. But guess what? It coming, it gotta come. They can keep finalizing how much that carbon. Right now they say between 25, I think, and $140 per ton of carbon, right? To pay for how much, maybe, you know, we taking in plenty tons. That's why they said we good for 150 something billion. So that money is almost sure to go up per ton. It may even go up to $250, $300 a ton. You know, so the higher that goes, that's like oil. The higher it costs, the more money we could be getting from it. But even at the little $20 per ton, we got a couple $1 billion to get every year. So we just want to know, I put a price on it and start paying us. Right? We can get the studies done. We ain't got a problem with that. Even if you don't let us the money, we'll find a way to get our studies done. But we want our money from our carbon credits. So we will look at those areas in a bit. Another thing, Red Fox, our Bahamian basketball superstar blast from the past. One of them. He's saying that the Bahamas and climate change are a crucial juncture. So what Rick Fox is saying is that, you know, this week starting on the 13th, which is 2 days from now, that's Thursday and Friday, 13 and 14. They got some of the brightest and best young men and women. They'll be hosting this year's Youth Climate Conference. It'll be right here in Nassau. And I guess these bright climate people from all over the world. And what he's saying is the Bahamas right now have a revolutionary carbon absorbing building material. In other words, we found this building material that you could use instead of cement. It may not be as good as cement, but the problem with cement is when you open that cement bag and you start to mix that, it emits carbon because obviously cement comes from the rock. Cement is carbon in the rocks, right? So it gotta emit carbon. But this stuff, again, related to the sea. Salt brine. I learned a word from my good buddy Eddie and Farquharson, right? He said when Morton rake up the salt, and then they start cleaning it and they get all the brine left in the lakes and they starting out to find things to use the brine for. So the same brine, according to what my brother Rick Fox is saying, the people, some Bahamian entity has been using that to make a substance to build homes and whatnot, and use that in place of cement, so that while all this construction going on, and they say the world contributes some 8% of carbon by way of construction, and that's mainly cement. So you all this brick and mortar and stuff they got going on, that's cement being mixed up, and as you mix it, the carbon is being released in the air. Right? So if you mix in brine instead of cement, you ain't got to worry about that no more. So again, these cement companies will be told to offset your carbon credit. Every cement, every ton of cement you sell, that represents so much tons of carbon. You need to pay us for that carbon that's going to be emitted in the air as part of it. So cement price got to go up, eh? But now when you get the brine, you could sell that for cheaper because we got plenty brine. We go into the brining area, and well, the Bahamas might be small, but we got plenty salt. And other countries got brine. So all of this would be an effort to minimize the amount of carbon that is being emitted into the air by way of the construction industry, eh? Now we don't say the airplane industry got to find a way to find net zero by 2050. The ships got to find a way to do net zero by 2050, and also the construction arena, construction industry, and then all of those plants, those electrical plants like BPL and Freeport Power and all of them in the US and all of them all over the world, they will also have to offset their carbon or pay for what they ain't offsetting. And that's why so much money you do in this carbon business. That's why we sitting good. That's why we looking good. That's why I'm glad I'm alive today, eh? Because just by virtue of having my name and passport, I got some money to get. Boy, I tell you. Anyway, since time is rolling, ain't nobody calling. I know. I guess y'all can call me in the next half, eh? Because right now we're about to run to a break. My people, thank you so much for continuing to listen. I hear nothing, but I hope you are listening. But this is where we're going with this, and I got a couple more things to cover. But dealing with this carbon, because boy, you ain't nothing like that kind of money to go on. So we go to a break. When I return, we shall continue. Thank you very much.
At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling Building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection. At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah. I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. I left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay. I've had nothing to live for, look like nothing's gonna come my way. So I'm just gonna sit on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. You are listening to Maritime Matters. Tonight, we're covering carbon credits. Carbon credits for the Bahamas, and of course, carbon credits for your pocket and mine. Our sponsors for tonight's show, as you heard, are One-on-One Pharmacy and Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited. To the listening audience out there, I am accompanied tonight by one of the greatest producers around this town. With me in studio tonight is the insatiable, the man of the hour, the man with all the power. He is fully able, quite capable. I bring to you all the way from the great city of Nassau, New Providence, Mr. Craig Gibson. Yes! Boy, I tell you, boy, Craig, see how long it take to bring you on. That's a whole hour, but now that's all right. I can't leave you out. This is my dog. Thank you very much. So you're listening to Maritime Matters. On this show, we talk maritime. Maritime Matters as weekly at 19:30 every Tuesday here on Love 97 FM. Purpose of our show is to highlight persons that made significant contributions to the maritime in the Bahamas and to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities in the maritime sector. We also cover current maritime issues from a domestic perspective and from the international maritime feeds. Halfway through the show, which is now, we're going to open the lines. The number to reach us will be 326-8255. I say again, the number to reach us, if you want to in on this carbon credit talk, is 326-8255. Oh my goodness, we got a call on the line. Call on the line, you're live on Maritime Matters.
Johnson, the original. I must give thanks to the Almighty God for Jesus Christ of Nazareth and the Holy Spirit enveloping us.
Yes, lady.
And divine salutations to King Charles III and Queen Consort Camilla. And happy independence.
Thank you very much. Happy independence to you.
Here in the Bahamas because it's divine to...
Line cut off. Something went wrong. I don't know. Miss Veronica, you'll have to call us back. I don't know what went wrong here in studio, but you just got disconnected somehow. We got another caller.
Yes.
Caller, welcome to Maritime Matters.
Good evening, Captain Payne. How are you doing?
I am in top shape, my brother, and how are you?
I'm excellent. By the way, your show is you've just taken over the entire Bahamas. You are now number one. You now have more than 100 million people all over the world, and it's growing.
Man,
your show is top scientific expressions that the world, in particular the Bahamas and the United States, must take notice of. Your scientific expressions are sound. Do not listen to the naysayers because they are not on board with truth. Continue to speak the truth because when you speak truth, the powers of God surrounds you and your enemies cannot do anything. Keep up the good work, and I'm Harry Alfonso Boleg. Good evening, and continue to speak truth to the Bahamas, to the United States, and to the world. Good evening.
Thank you so much, my brother. I so appreciate that compliment, my friend. You continue to take care of yourself, and feel free to call the show at any time, because you know that's how we roll. The show ain't a change.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you too. Wow, what a call. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how much people out there listening. And really, you know, I would hope that a lot of people listen, because I do a lot of research for these shows. When you hear me talk about something, I am hoping that somebody calls and asks for further clarification, or even rebut what I say and tell me, you know, from where they're getting their information from, because I am only letting out information I get from the media, from the press, from the local tabloids or newspapers, as we call them, from the international maritime feeds, and that's what I do. That's what I do. Is line one still available? Okay, I hope that's Riley calling back. Line one, you're on. Maritime Matters, hello.
Mr. Glenn Bain, how you doing?
Hey, top shape, my brother, top shape and getting better. How are you?
Man, I'm right here, man. I heard you trying to pronounce those terminologies for the amount of money we was talking about a while ago.
Yeah, man, I need your help, man. I know you know these things.
Listen, We got $1,000 bills. We got $1,000.
Yes.
You got 100,000. You got a million. 100 million. You got a billion. And 100 billion. You got a trillion. And 100 trillion. You got a zillion.
You saying the same thing I say? When you say 100, you're talking about 1,000, you know.
Yes, but it's easier said that way.
No, it isn't. Because when you say 100, you might as well just say 1,000. Man, one thing I know with maths now. You only catch me with maths. When I say 1,000, that's what I mean. I mean 100,000. Now that becomes complicated.
You know how to say thing? $100 bills is 1,000.
No, $1,000 bills is 1,000. Hey, you say 100, you put in another. You don't need to say 10. Let's say $1,000 bills is 1,000. 1,000 of those is a million, and 1,000 million is a trillion. It's a billion, sorry, and 1,000 billion is a trillion.
Yes. Okay, good. You said it. It's the same thing.
Yes, you're right. What's happening, man? I'll do.
Man, listen.
What you think with these carbon credits? You think we can get our money soon?
Huh?
You think we can get our money soon from these carbon credits?
Well, I don't know. I know Jamaica would like to get their own too. Because Jamaica had a place that's gone under the water too. You know that, right?
Yeah, but you need to remember Jamaica don't have that many banks. Jamaica don't have much shallow water.
Yeah, but
these carbon credits coming from seagrass and mangroves, and those are not in the ocean. The ocean, they need sunlight, so they can't be in the ocean.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is that they had a place that global warming took over one time ago too.
Yeah, but that ain't nothing to do with seagrass and mangroves, eh?
Well,
I mean, I would want Jamaica to get their share, don't get me wrong. But in the entire Caribbean, the Bahamas have over 60%. I want you to know that.
I know you got the most of it, okay?
No, over 60%. But they say 62% to be sure. But I don't do my reading on that.
Yeah.
So no other country could even compare with us when it comes to the carbon sinks. You know, you're a man who teach me about a carbon sink.
Yeah, no, you know the time. Well, listen, you know that thing you're talking about? That your bell house is it? It's that same mushy thing you walk in, that you walk around the mangroves.
Yeah, I know, Brian. You forget I speak by Martin and Inagua. My boy Arian and Derek Frack was in there. They let me know what this Brian thing is from way back, man. I mean, I didn't know what it was until certain things came up. But when they say Brian, I say, oh, so that Brian could be very useful.
So you know Johnson too then?
Yeah, man, Johnson and Derek. We man, if I know them. They're my boys.
I know when they was in high school and you looked up.
Oh, you know them in my high?
No, I know them. I used to go there to do mischief.
Oh, you used to do what? You used to do mischief.
You see? Hey, listen. I was a bad little boy when I was growing up. They were praying, right? And all they had was 10 buildings and stuff like that. Someone say, if the angel of the Lord was coming to come right now, who would be ready? Nobody saying that. The made a guy ran to get some restored, but 3 or 4 big rocks on top of them 10 buildings was gone. Everybody was running behind where they seen the rock come from.
Yeah, Derek and Jensen is good guys, man. And their daddy, Uncle Carl, he was very excellent people.
Yeah.
But
I know Uncle Jensen worked down at Freeport Power.
That is correct. He worked along with my Uncle Clyde. My Uncle Clyde just passed away, and I'm going to talk about him in a minute, because my Uncle Clyde was my everything, man. You know,
Oh man.
He's my everything.
So when you going back over?
It'll be soon. You know, the funeral is being planned and all the rest of that, and I got an office over there, so I'm in and out all the time. But it'll be soon enough. But I'll make sure I touch base with you when I come over, so we could hang out a little bit.
Okay, you can be in Freeport.
Yeah, the funeral will be. Yeah, man. You know, he always lived his whole adult life in Freeport, so it could be. As a matter of fact, he finished Hawksbill, so he never came back to Nassau to live after that.
Okay. All right. Well, you know something? Listen. All it takes right now is our leaders to do due diligence.
That's it. Don't be trying to put, man, you could put deals because the amount of money we can get, but I just want to know that our leaders first of all, understand where we should be standing. We need to know where we stand. Because if the world needs this stuff, and the world have to have it in order for the world to continue on, and of course we part of the world too. But we have it in our yard, and the world need it. Not only us have it, Australia got a lot of it too. And you know that, guess what?
Yeah.
So whatever they pay in Australia, they gotta pay us.
Yeah.
So the bills have to come into our country from our carbon credits. What we need to do is we need to look at preserving them, protecting them, and making sure we continue. And I don't know if you can even grow them things. I think they're naturally grown. I mean, if we could find a way to grow more, let's do that. But those are the things, exploring, they're the things we need to be doing. But we need to make sure, secure them, and make sure lobby for what we're supposed to get. That's my position. I know that these oil people come on it up and don't touch our carbon credits.
Okay, listen. One is supposed to be able to negotiate on our behalf anymore because we got enough lawyers and consultants in the Bahamas that are interested. I mean that we could use to take care of our business. We negotiated for independence. We negotiated our way in the United Nations. We negotiated our way into a lot of things. We don't need nobody else to negotiate on our behalf.
We're not negotiating, because the price will be set on the carbon, a ton of carbon worldwide, not only for the Bahamas. That's the value of the world. We ain't gonna negotiate for that price, but we gotta let them know. We know that we have a carbon sink taking in so much tons per hour, and be taking that out of the environment for the world. So the world, the World Bank and the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, countries gonna pay into all of that for that credit to be, for that carbon to be coming out of it, so that y'all could then pay us. I mean, we just happen to have it.
Hey, what I'm actually saying, we didn't need nobody to speak up for us. We can speak for ourselves. We already spoken. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but that's going to be taken care of by world. People in the world are going to decide and derive. They already have a price on it, but the price is solid. It's fluctuating, and as time gets nearer, the carbons will be more costly. They got companies taking carbon out there by way of extraction funds, and getting paid for that.
Yeah, China don't want to pay though. China is the biggest emitter. You know what I mean? Carbon pollutant. They don't want to pay.
Well, it's not really that they don't want to. They're not only that they don't want to pay. You got to remember, China makes a lot of money because they also found they sell oil as well. Plus, all of their factories and stuff depend on this stuff. So if their factories got to now start paying for the carbon they emit, then that means prices going up and all the rest of that, and they know it's going to impact them negatively. So I mean, they can do what any other country do, try to protect what they got, but it ain't happen. they lose in this battle because the earth got to be taken care of. We got to get a balance on this carbon situation, otherwise the earth will basically be swallowed.
Hey, before I go, right? 2 interesting facts. Do you see the weather that's happening in New York right now?
Well, we got global warming going on, my brother. You know what global warming means? That means this heat is being spread all around, right? Because it is trapped. So it will continue through osmosis to be moving from the hotter area to the cooler area, and that's why it's going to end up reaching the poles and cause the ice to melt.
Yes, sir.
That's why we got to get the carbon out there, so that filter could be recreated for the heat to escape from the Earth's environment. That's what we need to. That's why we got to do all these things.
Yes, yeah, man. And hey, listen, one more thing, man. What happened in Abacoa? You know what I mean? You heard about that tourist put the Damien girl in the headlock?
Yeah, but that didn't sound like Maritime to me. You know, I don't bother them kind of things. So if they're Maritime, I already discuss it.
One day they're close by the water.
We talking about carbon credits. What do they do with carbon credits?
It's only the news, you know.
Yeah, well, I don't want that kind of news on my carbon credit show.
Next thing you know, they'll be putting out an alert against us. I mean, because you know they like to do it against us, and I mean, they can't stop from doing their mass shooting again, you know, and then trying to make us look like we ain't nobody.
I ain't getting in their business. I just want them to be. I'm talking to carbon credits. We ain't getting in their business. Let them do whatever they want to do and stay in their own little corner. I can deal with my maritime and carbon credits.
Yeah, well, let them keep walking. Let them keep passing.
Keep passing, yes, sir. Well, thank you very much for calling, man. You know how we roll. We'll keep in touch. I'll let you know when I coming back, that way, so we can link up.
All right, man.
Thank you, my friend. Yes, that's my dog. 8 Mile Rock Man. Don't like me to call your name, so I ain't calling your name. So here we are. We talking maritime, people. You listening to Maritime Matters. If you want in on this discussion, 326-8255 is the number to call. I thought I was talking to myself, but now we're glad a lot of people listening, because now we only got 20 minutes left. What, 20 minutes? I who would I call? That's my boy. If you don't call tonight, I want to know if he all right. I'll have to pass by his house tonight. So far we've been talking about the carbon credits. Our government is examining the merits, if there are any merits, in dealing with the CEG, the Challenger Energy Group, and we ain't want that happening. So, Mr. Government, you know what to do with that. You need to nip that in the bud and tell them you've been good so far. We really don't have no more use for you, and if we get a couple dollars, we can give you a couple dollars back for what y'all spend into all of your research and stuff. But we don't need you to do nothing else. That one over. The IMF outlines climate financing obstacles in the region, and the IMF is saying basically, look, we're looking at this thing for the Caribbean, because our government, along with Mia Motley and all the rest of the Caribbean heads, has been approaching the IMF about funding us to look into what our carbon credits weight and that type of thing, right? So they're trying to give little excuses, but our government debt, we have debt at high levels, and we got gaps in the data pertaining to our carbon, and they don't have the effectiveness. There's no effective carbon pricing established as yet, and we know that, and we're happy with that. But guess what? That ain't gonna stop us from getting what belongs to us. Now, my good brother, Mr. Rick Fox, he's talking about this Bahamian company that is using brine from the salt or salt water. They could use that in place of cement once they mix it with certain things. So the cement emits a lot of carbon in the air, almost 10%. I think up to 8% of the total carbon emitted into there comes from construction. The cement, once the cement comes from under the earth, plenty carbon, and once they mix that up and that release carbon goes back in there. And what Brother Fox is saying is, we need to support this company, and I even remember the name of the company, but it's a revolutionary effort to use brine instead of cement, and I'm all with that, and I thank Rick Fox for bringing that out, and you get my full support on that. Now, RCI. Should I go here? No, let's not go to RCI yet. We got minutes left. We got to go to RCI. And then next week we'll talk about what all these ships are doing, right? There's a lot of ships out there changing their engines. New ships are being built with different type fuel. They're using all kind of things now to offset their carbon. This is real, people. I tell you, this is real. Airplanes are doing the same thing. But as a big maritime man, so I stick with the ships. But let's talk quickly about RCI. RCI commits their new ship to an all-Bahamian itinerary starting in 2024. What does that mean? The Royal Caribbean International, or RCI, announced that the Oasis class ship, and they talk about the Oasis of the Seas, the Utopia of the Seas, that's the latest one. I mentioned that in a couple of shows ago. I tell you, the Utopia is being built, and now they're saying that the Utopia is going to come and work out of not Miami, not Everglades, but I want up the name, Cape Canaveral, and she is going to be doing. Let me finish reading. We'll have a sailing itinerary dedicated to the Bahamas, bringing 15,000 passengers per week to the Bahamas. They ain't going to go nowhere else but the Bahamas, right? Well, of course, they're going to be home important in Orlando, up in Cape Canaveral. Or Port Canaveral, it used to be Cape Canaveral. But they are going to be doing 2 cruises a week. A 3-day cruise and a 4-day cruise. So when they leave to come out, they come out for a 3-day cruise. When they get back, that same day they let off all the people, and this boat began 6,000 people, passengers. And then they take on a fresh set of people, and they come out for a 4-day cruise, because they got 7 days in the week. That's why it's 3 and 4 days, eh? If they had 8 days in the week, it would have been 2 4-day cruise. If we had 6 days a week, it would have been 3-day cruise. So you got 7 days a week. So one is 3 days, one is 4 days, and every week they continue to do the same thing. Isn't that marvelous? I don't know if there's no other country in the world other than the Bahamas where a ship goes to do a cruise and it's only like, I mean, one of these big ships like Icon of the Seas. Come on, man, you're talking about the biggest ships in the world. When the Icon is let loose, she's going to be the biggest ship in the world. So, sorry, this is not the Icon, this is the Utopia. She's powered by LNG. You know what is LNG? Liquefied natural gas. So it's natural gas, and they got plenty of that down in like Trinidad and Tobago and some. They got a lot of LNG, the natural gas. But what they do is they process it and liquefy it, just like how they do. So it's like gas or diesel, right? It's liquefied, but it's natural gas. So you know what? When that is used in that engine for combustion, that do let off too much carbon. I need let off carbon, but compared to the bunker C, it's like it's more than half. I guess about 60-70% it will emit as compared to one of those regular big fuel burning, bunker C burning engines. Same size engine, but they use an LNG, right? And this is one of the biggest cruise ships in the world. So cruise ships, and we know bulk carriers and a lot of cargo ships are now turning to LNG for fuel because they want to minimize the amount of carbon they put in the air. Because the more carbon they put in there, the more they get paid for it, right? So these ship owners ain't fool. You can save so much money by not putting carbon in there. So when you're building your ship now, you can make sure you got the least carbon releasing machinery on board. So that's the Utopia to see. Now she'll be doing 3-day cruises and 4-day cruises. I was told from I was deputy port controller working in the port, I was told that the reason why some of these cruise ships like to do short cruises is because when they get the people on board, after the first 3 nights, most of them are broke. Casino them take plenty of their money, or they don't do most of their spending, and then so let's get them off and get another fresh pockets on the ship. So the Utopia decided, RCI decided that the Utopia will come to Nassau and then Coco Key or vice versa. She'll be doing only 2 ports, Nassau and Coco Key. Coco Key is the one that she owns. Nassau is the one, I can't say we own that anymore. We used to own it, right? But we know when the ship comes to Nassau, there's a lot of spin-off effects. A lot of people make money, and that's we happy. We don't want to knock our tourism because we super wealthy now with carbon credits. We still want our cruise ships. We still want to make money from them. So let them do that. But it's very interesting to know now that we've always been talking about cruise ships having enough ports in the Bahamas to do a full itinerary Bahamian. But now the only issue is this one doesn't start in the Bahamas, because we can't do the home porting. I mean, let's be real. It'll cost them so much more money to try to do home porting in the Bahamas. And everybody know it. So let them continue to do their home porting in Florida and come to us to make those 2 stops. That's 4 stops a week. 2 stops in Nassau every week. We can't complain, Well, we shouldn't complain. We shouldn't complain. We're too dang it ungrateful sometimes. Now on board that ship, the Utopia of the Seas, they will have a young lady by the name of Ivana Seymour. Who is Ivana Seymour? Ivana Seymour is a Bahamian. And what is she going to be doing on board that ship? She's going to be their first officer. And she's the first Bahamian first officer on board a cruise ship. I think female or male. I could be wrong. But certainly and definitely the first female Bahamian to be a first officer on board a cruise ship. And she's going to be coming to the Bahamas twice weekly, navigating the waters of her own home country. So ladies and gentlemen, when you see that utopia coming to Nassau, please salute, because we got a Bahamian on there. She's the first officer. She ain't got too far to go. Now this Savannah is trying to become a cruise ship captain, and she get all the green lights I could give her, because she's good at what she does, and it's only a matter of time. If she can make first officer, she can become chief mate, she can become staff captain, and then captain of the ship. And it may take another 15 years, but she young. So Ivana, Lady Seymour, go for yourself, girl. Go for yourself. I am so proud of you. Now, we're down to 9 minutes. Is that true? Is that time gone that fast? So let's move on. I'm supposed to talk about my Uncle Clyde, right? Lord, those of you who don't know Clyde, you all have to forgive me, because that man is such a mountain. He's a giant of a man. From the time I knew myself, that man was in my life. And he was always the best at whatever I know he doing. When he was shooting marbles, I used to go to the shop. Remember back in them days, you buy a pack of marbles for 25 cents. You used to have 10 marbles in it, the little small one. Not the big size in them, but the little small one, but 10. And when I was shooting marble with Harley and Hansel and them, my boys from Apple Street, we didn't know who would win, because all are shooting, right? Sometimes I may come with a pocket full or 2 pocket full. Sometimes I broke. But you know that 1 pocket or 2 pocket full was a joke to with Clyde every now and then. And my Uncle Clyde only about 5 years older than me. So, you know, old man. He been around, start growing up and roll up and just like me, right? Clyde will come around the house to us every now and then, and he'll drop off a 1-gallon jug full of marbles. And this was routine for him, because the fellas he's shooting with, he taking all the marbles. Well, just showing about shooting marbles, right? But my Uncle Clyde was always there. I mean, he would bring marbles, he would bring his BB gun, teach me how to shoot BB gun. I would watch him do some things that other fellas couldn't do with BB gun. He was that good. And when I became an adult and joined the Defense Force, Clyde was always living in Freeport, because, you know, he left us around 12, 13 years old. He went to Freeport. And he went to Hawksbill. He up with all the Bucky Nesbitt and them fellas. You know, they were the best basketball players around. And the guy, he was short, but short as he was, when he come to Nassau and stay by us, and he go on the court round the corner with them fellas, they taller than him, and he dunking the ball on them. And I telling you this, I ain't making nothing up. Anybody who know but Clyde had been playing basketball for Hawksbill back in the day could tell you. He was the best shooter. He was the point guard. He went to play night league and all that, and then he didn't go on to college because he was too short. And I always tell him, boy, if you had height, you would have been in the university. But Clyde, boy, may your soul rest in peace. To his wonderful wife, Iris, who was there from day one, most faithful, looked after him for the past couple of years when he started to, you know, feel little ailments. Iris, I say thank you from my family, from me in particular, because you know, your husband was everything to me. To Corey and Kyle, they're like my sons, because like I say, Clyde is only 5 years older than me. Corey and Kyle are around the age of my children, Misty and G.A. and Graham. They're right in the mix of them three. Those 5, they were like the 5 children for the 4 of us parents. Because my kids would go and live with them in Freeport. They would come and live with us in Nassau. Whenever we go to Freeport, we live with Clyde and Iris. Whenever they come to Nassau, they live with me and Michelle. And that is how we live. We grew up like one. Our kids grew up like one set of parents. That's how close we are. And, you know, Clyde would be the only person I could tell you in my lifetime that I would have gotten clothes from. I would get his car key no matter what going on. He used to actually catch ride to work so that I could have his car when in Freeport. No man, don't worry about me. I catch a ride. I say, yeah, but Clyde, you could just drop me. No. I can catch a ride. Don't worry about me. I good. He would give you anything. You go in his house, you'll feel like you live there. And this is not just for me. All of his nieces and nephews he did it for. And I say, see, I don't talk with dead people too much. I have plenty close people. My mommy died in 2019. You only never hear me talk about her on the show, eh? But the impact Clyde Hepburn had on my life, I have to do this. Okay, 5 minutes left. Ladies and gentlemen. Oh, good night, Annie Mae. Oh my goodness, Annie Mae, I tell you good night tonight. I know you're always listening. You know you're my number one fan. Annie Mae is in her 90s and moving strong. And again, from Royal Avenue. Well, let's go up in Royal Avenue. Yeah, you go up in Royal Avenue, you gotta know Annie Mae. Her son, she lost 2 sons just last year. I was the year before Annie Mae. God and Dwayne. Well, of course, Dwayne Bethel, Defense Force, Force Chief Petty Officer. God was like all our big brother. So, you know, it's been a lot of deaths lately, people, and we need to reach out and touch each other. We need to, you know, because at some point all us going, one of us can leave the next. Reach out and touch. My good friend Lillian Johnson, we graduated from R&B in 1979. Lillian just 2 days ago on this step out on us. Boy, what a life. Anyway, back to carbon credits. We got opportunity to use shipping carbon levy for maximum impact, okay? There a global consensus grows on the need for carbon pricing. On emissions, remember when you emit carbon, we want you to pay for that. As part of measures to decarbonize the commercial shipping industry. So the shipping industry have to become decarbonized by 2050. That's 26 years, 27 years from now. They will not be able to put any carbon in the air that they don't offset. That's what they call net zero, eh? If you put 20 tons of cargo from your exhaust pipe into there, then you got to pay a country like the Bahamas or pay the World Bank to say some of those credits that the Bahamas is getting from absorbing the carbon out there. Since I put in 20 tons, I get paid the Bahamas the $200 a ton for those 20 tons. And we being modest here because we know they can put in way more than 20 tons because ships' engine don't turn off when they see them going from one place to the next. They sometimes go for weeks before they reach their next destination. And you got over 50,000 ships out there, and they all have to be offsetting for carbon credits. So we in the Bahamas have only to gain, and not only to gain, but to gain big time. Yeah? So they're going to decarbonize the commercial shipping, and the airplane industry is going to have to be decarbonized, and the vehicle, the cars, they put in 28% of the world carbon emission from the carbon monoxide. You know, when the carbon monoxide go up and turns to mixes with certain chemical, they become carbon dioxide as well, and they trap there and they take in heat and all the rest of that. So we are going to decarbonize the industry. Same thing with talk about 8% coming from modern and well, we don't say how we deal with that. They got to use our brine, eh? So we win again off the brine. So the focus is now shifting to how the massive resources generated can be utilized. Yeah. So the World Bank released detailed report indicating that between $1 trillion and $3.7 trillion could be raised by 2050 via carbon pricing. Now, this is the World Bank. Eh? You ain't got the funds yet. The International Monetary Fund. These people got to find a way to prove to the world that they're not emitting carbons, and so they may come directly to the Bahamas. Look here, we want to buy some of the credits that your carbon sink, and again, when the negotiation get tight, we may be able to go up. Anyway, they talking about $3.7 trillion. How much is $1 trillion again? $1 trillion is $1,000 billion. And they talking $3 trillion. Anyway, our time is flash out. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection, and secondly, we sponsored by Lord, my little cousin can kill me. I don't lose my big sense. My time running out on me. What is Mr. Producer? One-on-one Pharmacy, oneononepharmacy.com. And then in Freeport is Island Care Pharmacy. Oh boy, look here, I ain't getting no younger. Anyway, my good cousin Steph, she ain't do me too bad when I go back in Freeport and catch up, but we've been sponsored by them all along. They're going to continue to sponsor us. We continue to bring researchers to you. I really got to get to the maritime stuff so you could really understand what some of these ships are actually doing, so that by 2050 they ain't have nothing to worry about. So I say hello again to my Auntie May. My goodness, Auntie May, you know what time it is. I had much time to talk to you tonight, but yes, my buddy, we'll talk tomorrow. And ladies and gentlemen, I thank you so much for listening to the show. To all the callers, I humbly thank you for calling the show. And Miss Veronique, so sorry you got cut off. I don't know what went wrong. I don't know if your power went down or whatever, but certainly hit me up next week. So ladies and gentlemen, with that, I have to say to you, good night, and Maritime Matters out.
Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. I left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay. I've had nothing to live for, look like nothing's gonna come my way, so I'm just gonna sit on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. Look like nothing's gonna change, everything still remains the same. I can't do what 10 people tell me to do, so I guess I'll remain the same. Sitting here resting my bones, and this loneliness won't leave me alone. This 2,000 miles I roam, just to make this dock my home. Now I'm just gonna sit at the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time.
At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in